Hi guys, Brent Build Show. We're at a French style house that we're building here in Fort Worth. I'm going to walk you through some of these details that kind of make it French, and it's been a fun project. And we'll start here on the outside. Basically, a lot of times when we're building a house, we try to build it as if it's grown over time, as if it's changed over time. And one of the ideas that happens with houses like this, and especially historic houses, is that there's a hierarchy, okay? And what I mean by that is that if you look at this central block, you see the modillions, the rafter tails coming through there, right? In that cornice at the top there. And notice on the front side, we've closed the eaves, meaning they're boxed in, they're trimmed out, okay? On the back side, you'll see these open eaves, these open rafter tails. And so it's kind of telling you where you are. Here you're a very formal front side of the house. There'll be a very formal front drive and a beautiful stone entry going here. But we've copied some historic details here that we think are important. For one, the quoining, okay? Quoining is spelled Q-U-I-O-N. What that is that in historic houses that were built from stone, right? The corner and how the corners were locked together was very important. So what we're conveying here is that this house was built of stone, and then the coins were what lock a corner together, okay? On the main part of the house, we've stuck with this stone detail. And actually right here, you'll see some of the details that we got cut stone, and then we actually distressed it, okay? We distressed it a number of different ways to give it a handmade look. Historically, what would have happened is the stone would have been quarried, broken, and then tooled, okay? And so you would have these tool marks or these tool details on the stone that over time would have a character and a detail. You can't just have a cut face, right, on the house of this style, okay? So the window surrounds are made of stone block, which is supporting the opening. We've got the same thing on the cut stone portion of this. And so again, we're trying to create this feeling, this attitude that this house is grown over time, it's been here a long time, and it's French in style. We'll see more of those details inside. I'm going to show you some of the interior details of this house, but while we're standing right here, we're in a central hall, okay, right off the main entry. And if you look out the back, there's a framed view, okay? So in traditional or classical style homes, you'd have this hierarchy, and you would have a center line, right? So this is basically our center line that runs through the center of the house all the way out through the pool in the backyard. You've got flanking formal rooms, right? A dining room on this side and kind of a study or formal room on this side. And what we've done is put in French moldings. Now, if you follow me for a while, you know that I have a big library of books, and how do we know they're French moldings, okay? Well, we look at books that have French moldings in them. And there's many books from the 20s that actually document the shape, the sizes, and everything else. And so right here, right, is our wainscot, okay? On the wainscot, you see this pretty molding detail, and in French moldings, they kind of have a drippy or droopy look to them, okay? A lot of bead details. You see that bead in that base cap. Same thing as the bead detail in this panel mold. So we have a historically appropriate wainscot at a height of about 30 inches, okay? French moldings, and then our casings kind of look like this, okay? It's probably a better view. This is kind of what a typical French molding looks like. It's weird, okay? It's an architrave. It's a door or window casing. Has a bead on the front. It has this kind of big bead on the back, and then it would have a back band like this, okay? That would come in here, and it's a little bit hard to see that. But basically, there's our molding. Now, one of the things we did at this doorway was we created what's called a cross-setted corner, okay? And a cross-setted corner is a corner that kind of kicks out of about a 12-foot area, and it really frames and highlights that opening, right? And so we have these cross-setted corners, and you'll see that throughout this house. So we're really playing with a kind of a formal, right, styling house, and it deformalizes as we go back. So central hall, French moldings, very formal in the way it's laid out. Let's go to the kitchen, and we'll see some other ways we've played with the moldings. So one thing I want to show you as we're going down this hall is not only moldings, should they be proportional, okay, should they be at the proper height and scale, but they should also unify architectural elements of the house, right? They ought to tie things together. And so you see that a little bit with this wainscot cap and these doors, okay? These are doors that we built at our shop, okay, and we built them so that they would match the paneling in here. You can kind of see it right there at that door where you see the panels on either side of the door, and the height of that is not an accident, right? The height of that matches the panels on the side so that it unifies the space, right? And so the moldings all of a sudden draw it together and help it make sense, right? And so unifying the space, also the proper height and proportion, and that's kind of not by accident there. What we like to do with our cabinets is create a furniture look. Now, the reason we do that is that the whole idea of the European hinges, okay, happens after World War II when Europe is rebuilding. There are hinges that were invented in Europe, okay? That's why they call it European hinge, right? So if you go to cabinets and furniture before that time, they had doors that were inset inside the face frame, okay, with hinges, okay? So this is more furniture quality and it's kind of a pre-1940 feel, okay? We also do a cabinet door that's 1 inch thick, okay? We do that so that we can get deeper panel molds and raised panel details. This panel detail with that little bead right there is kind of a classical French type of detail, just more ornamentation. Again, you see a bead on that little molding there. That bead detail shows up on a little cabinet here, shows up in the molding, shows up in the crown, right? All those areas where it starts speaking to each other. We'd like a 1 inch thick door, okay? A door that won't warp or twist over time, okay? And then on the inside, we do special shelf stays. I spoke about it in one of my books where we actually stole this idea from a Radford building catalog as far as building details and how they built cabinets in the 20s, okay? So all these details we're pulling together give it a timeless feel, right? Give it the look like it came from a different age. So when we're building our cabinets, notice at the top we've got crown that's appropriate to the size of the cabinet, right? This upper reads as a piece of furniture, and as it should. And so this kitchen looks like it's been crafted by hand, not kind of thrown together with European hinges. So let's go outside. I want to show you the backyard and some of the dressed down details that we did back there. We're on the back porch now, and you might ask yourself, where do you get 12 by 12 by 24 foot long beams? Well, they're not at Home Depot. You have to custom order these things, and the lead time to get a beam that big was actually a couple months. But the beauty is that when this is put together, and you'll notice we've got steel frame construction here that's holding these beams up, and they're actually stuck into the wall back over there, again with metal flanges, because these things weigh like 2,000 pounds, okay? They're really, really heavy. But what you want to avoid back here is you want to avoid where you're boxing beams out and you see splices and cuts in the beams. In my mind, this adds to the authenticity. The lead time's longer, but the costs aren't that much more, right? And so we're actually able to get these full-size, huge, awesome beams that when this area is finished, it's going to feel really old, right? Because you can't get this kind of thing every day. The other thing we do, and you're kind of seeing it here, is that we actually put our stucco on block, okay? We used to, okay, put our stucco onto a zip board with metal lab. The problem with that is that those two surfaces are moving separately, okay? And what happens now is that because we're able to build this off the block, we've got an air separation between the zip board and the block, and then we put our stucco on here, and the stucco doesn't move because the masonry underneath doesn't move, moves at the same rate, okay? Because we've got equilibrium between those two spaces, because they are fashioned from the same material, they move the same, right? And so we don't have cracking like we used to have. That's a new thing we've started doing. You'll see that on our other houses, but stucco on block is kind of all how we're doing it. The other thing you notice back here is that our rafter tails are now open rafter tails. when we're creating a space like this where you're actually able to see the underside of these rafter tails. What we're trying to communicate is that this was an original timbered building, right? Original timbered construction, that the rafters weren't, you know, 1.5 by 8. They were, you know, 2.5 by, you know, 6 or 7, okay? So that they had this historic, awesome feel, and then they're shaped, okay? The French oftentimes would shape the rafter tails. And I grabbed one here because I think when you're looking up there, it's hard to get a feel for what size that is. But, you know, here we are, maybe almost 2.5, 3 inches thick. There you see the shape on this thing, and you see how pretty they are off the ends of this building, painted. And then with we're going to have a round gutter that's going to sit here with this pretty downspout. It's going to be a really pretty detail. Okay. The other thing we do on these houses is we try to incorporate historic material. Now, in this case, this is a antique French mantel. Okay, this is probably 200 or 300 years old that we kind of repurposed for this space. It originally had this hood. They actually stuccoed this hood today. You can actually see up underneath here that this was a solid piece of wood, right? A solid piece of stone that was then shaped back, that we are then mimicking that thing. Our smoke shelf and everything else is back here. What we're trying to mimic is that original shape and that original construction, which is a really pretty detail. And you see that kind of typical French shape there. Now, I want to go back out here and I want to look back, because part of that French design is also having this French roof that kind of swoops out and is really pretty, and you're going to see some really pretty details here. So what we're doing is we're at the back of the house. Now when we are standing in the center hall looking out back, we're at that access point back here. So there will be a wall on the back side of this pool which you'll catch your eye, but we're standing now in the back, okay? Now, you'll notice as you look at these buildings that we've got these exposed rafter tails in this pretty swoop in the bottom edge of that room, which is kind of a French detail. We've got the finials there at the top made in copper that are really pretty, kind of emphasizing this French detail. Now you remember on the front we had cut stone around the openings. Back here we have timbers, okay? So again, we're dressed down. And the little windows and the dormers here on the back side of the carriage house are meant to convey this fact that this is a servants' areas, right? This is where the help worked and lived, and they would have been part of this main house that has been tied together later. So you have these elements, you have these pieces here, another one there, and then kind of back to the main house that are all kind of telling the same story, right? They're all still French, but they're spoken in different ways, and it becomes really interesting that way. So we're about 70, 80% done. We're kind of putting the trim in. It's a fun stage. I left one room. I didn't show you one room, which is going to be really exciting to look at. It's awesome game room, which we'll come back and see when it's finished. I'm Brent Hull. Follow me on the Hull Millwork Hull Homes on Instagram. Thanks for watching.